Dogs Alarm. With me, as always, is Miss Diana Marie. Di, what's going on?
Hello, happy to be back.
And back from the Phantom Zone, we got Sith Jade.
Hi.
Sith, what's going on?
Hi, I'm alive. I'm fine.
We're so happy to have you back, and we didn't feel whole last week when we were doing the show without you, but
Yeah,
I hope we pulled it off. We called it our Meg episode because you weren't here.
Yeah,
so
I watched it. I think you guys did pretty good.
So first of all, again, every time we continue this journey, we just want to thank you all for your continued love and support. We've been getting a lot of really great, comments, and comic book movies been absolutely great to us. Just want to let you know, clicking like on this channel will absolutely help us out when it comes to numbers and viewerships and all the things that we want to bring to you in the future. Things like watch-alongs, trailer reviews, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, please show your love and support just with that simple like, and that will definitely help us out immensely. So this week we're actually going to start with Top Jedi, which is of course the news that people are actually talking about at this moment. And of course we'll get to the main topic later on. So Diana, what's first in Top Jedi this week?
So something I've been super excited about, Ghostbusters Afterlife released a little clip of Paul Rudd, who's playing Mr. Gooberson in the new movie. He's in a grocery store, and then he comes in contact with these little mini puffed marshmallows. So at first he's super cute, and then as I was watching it, it kind of went like, oh, this is so cute, and to slowly terrified horror.
Madness.
Yes.
Well, when I saw that, you were the first person I thought about, because I figured you were just in some cute overload after seeing that,
Oh, you know it.
Just shoving Grogu aside, mini puffs.
Not quite, but almost.
They can share a shelf. Yeah.
Yes. But what I'm most excited about is they're going to be releasing some toys and a new cereal coming this fall. So I'm definitely going to be collecting those.
What's next on Top Jedi?
So we have another trailer that just dropped for Cruella. It was just as fantastic as the first one. We got to see more of the Baroness, which is of course played by Emma Thompson. I love her. She is a star in every single role that she's in. So the first one was more Cruella centered, but now the Baroness, I got to see a little bit more of her sass and her power. I'm really excited to see them butt heads in the movie for sure.
And speaking of Disney and Marvel Studios, let's how about that Black Widow trailer, huh? Black Widow trailer dropped on Saturday, and as we've been saying for 2 years now, we're finally getting this movie in July.
Oh my gosh.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, I know, seriously. I hope they don't push it back again. I'm please don't.
There's a really great meme that had me laughing pretty hard. I think it was a week ago, and it said the Black Widow premiere, and somebody photoshopped Scarlett Johansson so she looked 80.
That's what it feels like at this point. Yeah, it really does.
But no, the thing that was cool about this trailer was that, a lot of people were saying, oh God, another Black Widow trailer. There's nothing they can bring to the table that'll get me excited about this movie again. And you know what? You better apologize to Lord Feige, because you're absolutely 100% wrong. Yeah. And they showed some really awesome stuff, that they didn't show before. One of them being that I'm guessing that it is actually Natasha's younger self, played by Mila Jovovich's daughter.
Yeah,
which is really cool.
What I was saying. Yeah.
So, and just a little bit more with Taskmaster, and seeing kind of that whole narrative there. That kind of I don't know. I guess to a certain degree makes a little more sense of where it's going. I think honestly, it's kind of there was an FX show on TV with Kerry Russell called The Americans. Mm-hmm. And I think that family was playing this fake family, for the KGB or whatever.
Right.
So that's, where Yelena comes from. They were playing sister, father, Rachel Weisz was the mother, but they weren't actually a real family. But of course, as she says, Florence Pugh says in the, her character says in the trailer many times, you were everything to me. You are my sister. You know what I mean?
There's a real bond there outside of the necessity of having it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did anything else stick out when it comes to that trailer for you guys?
I will admit that I did not watch it all the way through because I didn't want to see too much of it. This Black Widow she's one of my favorite Marvel characters. She always has been. And so I always get that feeling if I see too much of it in the trailer and then I go into the movie and I'm like, oh, that's where that wasn't. So I kept myself away from it a little bit just because I want to be a little bit surprised. I
That
want
makes
to
sense.
feel that tingle, that excitement.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about you, Jai? Anything?
I just want to shout out to the people that did the music for the trailer. I don't know, it just got me really psyched.
Yeah, that Russian choir at the end doing the Avengers theme, it really, yeah, definitely hit the spot. And just showed you that, like even though this movie has just been, pushed back and pushed back and pushed back, that Marvel has every intention of making this the hit that it needs to be.
Of course, it's Marvel.
Yeah, so. There's really not much to say about it except for, my excitement was never gone when it came to Black Widow, but I know for a lot of people, they were just kind of like, oh, we're never going to see this thing. We're never going to see this thing, like, here's another trailer. I don't care. And it seemed like for the most part, a lot of people were really happy with what they saw on Saturday. And it kind of like reinvigorated them for, that actual story to be, to play out. What's next in Top Jedi?
So the Powerpuff Girls released a short clip of the girls dressed up in their costumes, and then we saw Blossom flying in her little harness, and the girls running behind her.
You're talking about the Powerpuff production that started for CW, the Berlantiverse.
Yep.
Yes, that when they started filming the pilot episode.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts on this Powerpuff show? Listen, I thought it was interesting, to say the least, because, you're thinking that, I'm sure it's going to change at some point, like maybe the costume is going to change or whatever. But the fact that they're actually using these cartoon accurate dresses for this one scene that they're filming is just like, I would never have guessed that they were going to go that way.
I definitely didn't think that's what they were going to do. I thought they were going to completely change the look just to bring it kind of like into, where we are now. But I mean,
more adult.
I'm okay with the keeping the nostalgia if that's the route that they want to go. I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were really just kind of, I don't know, taken aback by that, and not necessarily in a good way. They were just like, huh? Yeah. Like, what are they doing? I honestly, I mean, they are obviously they're adult, actors. So even if it is a flashback of some sort, they are, women dressed like the cartoon versions of Powerpuff. And you know what? Hey, I say more power. Whatever they're gonna do.
Yeah.
I'm just
see like one of those like outfit change moments too, where they're like casting aside their old costumes to become like who they're supposed to be. That could be, it could be that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to gather from all this. I don't know where it's going, and I don't know. I'm not gonna dump on it though. I know a lot of people instantly are just like, I didn't even watch this show, and I'm, my childhood's offended. I don't know.
Then don't watch the show. No, I think it'll be good. I think it'll be fun.
I think so too. I'm gonna give it a chance. What's next in Pop Jedi?
So coming into a little bit more exciting news, we have Godzilla versus Kong, which absolutely blew away the box offices. I think it was one of the movies that did the best since the pandemic started.
Yeah, it's correct. Yeah.
There was over 3,000 theaters that showed it, 48 million, almost 50 million that came in for that, and well deserved. Obviously, it was a titan of a movie.
Yeah. Well, I think internationally it's over 100 million, and then here in the States it's, I don't know the exact number. What is it, like 96 or something? 96 million or something like that?
Yeah, it's getting up there. It's continuing to climb. Like it's very exciting.
Yeah, it's that was something that I was saying. This particular movie was going to be, because they were saying, what movie is going to be the thing that saves the box office and saves the industry to a certain extent, and gets people gets asses in seats. Let's be real. I mean, that's pretty much what the game is. I always knew it was going to be Godzilla versus Kong. It was just unquestionably the the thing that was going to change the game, especially during the pandemic and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's so awesome to just hear those numbers again, because I don't care about box office and all that stuff. I don't pay attention to it, but like we haven't heard those numbers in over a year. You know what I mean? So even something like, I remember last year, like one of the biggest hits there was like, because it made like 3 million.
That's a small number when it comes to box office stuff. And that, I mean, when you see a pandemic and something like that so largely globally reflecting in something like the box offices, that's how you know, like, this is real.
Yeah, absolutely. And I honestly, I think Black Widow is going to pull people in to the theater. Maybe even me, I don't know. But I have not seen a Marvel movie at the theater first before, you know what I mean?
Same. Yeah.
So I don't know if I'd be able to, pull away from that tradition. Just ask that you guys, do the right thing, wear a mask, protect yourself and all of that. Yeah, just be, I know a lot of people are starting to attend theaters and stuff now, and like that. I love that. I absolutely love that. I just want people to be safe when they do it.
Yeah.
So to get off the Marvel train like we were before with Black Widow, we're going to talk about some DC news. Some of it's not that great. I, as a DC fan, I'm really disheartened by certain actions and certain situations that have been going on, especially in the past couple of years with a certain group of executives. So let's get to the fun news first. So, as everybody knows, we were big fans of the, a Snyder cut of Justice League here. And, we obviously want the, Snyderverse to be restored. And, one of those things is, of course, Joe Manganiello's rendition of Deathstroke or Slade Wilson. There's a lot of really great potential there. I remember when he did an interview, I think it was like a month ago, and he was on a podcast talking about the actual themes of the Batman movie, that never happened if Ben Affleck was actually going to write and direct this, this particular Batman film that he was supposed to, before things got, off the rails and, he got caught up in alcoholism or whatever, you know what I mean? But he was saying that Deathstroke was supposed to be, it was technically like the idea for the story was more like a horror themed thing, simply because, Slade is just pretty much on point with every one of Batman's movements. He's, not able to duck him in any kind of way, shape or form. He's pretty much like the shark from Jaws. Like he's just coming for you.
He's on you. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was kind of like the theme of the movie that Ben Affleck was supposed to direct. That in itself sounds awesome. Then he said like there's supposed to be an introduction of a Batgirl, and Batgirl was supposed to help fight, Slade, and never happened, of course. So Joe has been like championing, his fans to really get at HBO Max for this series, for this Deathstroke series. And, even though like DC is getting ready to, throw out the Snyderverse, with the bathwater and all that stuff, this was the number one talked about thing out of everything that was been going on, like Godzilla versus Kong and all these other things. It was like the most hashtag talked about thing. So obviously there's something there. You know what I mean? So the question is, it's such a weird thing, when you're actually part of a world that's pretty much thrown you out, and, like you also work for a company that could actually like, kind of bring you to the table and, bring something, like that fans will be excited about.
Yeah.
I'm not certain, how that plays out, how that works. Warner Media, HBO Max are kind of like the same, one and the same to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Even though there is that kind of like that AT&T connection as well. I don't know. I would really love to see a Deathstroke show. And I saw somebody say the other day that, obviously it would be different in tone and stuff like that. But, if you're introducing, like, I wouldn't say Slade is a minor character, but, if you're doing like Marvel Studios is doing with like Falcon and Wanda and Vision and Loki, they are kind of second tier, and now they're like the biggest characters in the world. So you do have something here
Yeah.
when it comes to Deathstroke, he could absolutely 100%, be your Mandalorian. You know, like I don't know anything about Peacemaker from Suicide Squad, and I'm so damn excited for that show with John Cena. Like,
yeah, that is like, I just care about him at this point. Like that's yeah.
Well, we'll get to his craziness in a second. Unfortunately, when you're talking about DC and Warner, you got to talk about their missteps. So, for years, Ray Fisher has been fighting. He's been saying publicly that, they've been putting, like a lot of his allegations, like just,
Sweeping them under the rug.
Yeah, just sweeping them under the rug. And, I honestly never really thought that we'd get the truth from him. So we finally did a couple days ago in this scathing expose about some of the executives at Warner and DC. I don't want to get too much into the details of it, like the meat and potatoes of it, because there's so much there.
There's a lot. Yeah.
But if you guys aren't familiar, like the article is out there, it's scathing. It's absolutely scathing, and really just it just shows you how scummy some people are.
Yeah, it's really sad.
Somebody like, here's the sad thing about it is, we talked about Joss Whedon in the past before, and I know, like allegedly the type of person he is, and there's a lot of people that have said it.
A lot of people.
But then it also goes to, the closed-mindedness and the problems and stuff also fall on the shoulders of somebody like Jeff Johns. And I've got tons and tons of comics that were written by Jeff. And, just a huge component for DC. And that's really disheartening too, just to hear, the things that, he had said, to him behind closed doors, or the things that he, was against. I don't know if it was from some sort of racial situation, but, honestly, like the only thing that you could say about it is that, Ray was just really, really done dirty. As you could tell, of course, from the Snyder Cut. There was nothing when it comes to Cyborg's story in the Justice League, the 2017 version.
Yeah, there was literally nothing.
There was nothing. And not only is that character important, but, like his mother and father, are seen as very highly intellectual, like brilliant, scientists and stuff, so that, even that representation is important. These are all things that they did not care about with the 2017 cut. They're just like, this does not matter. Don't care. Nobody cares about this. And I don't necessarily know what what his just desserts would be at this point.
Yeah.
He's got his truth out there. They've already fired him, from Warner. Like they said, they were not going to do any kind of Cyborg spinoffs. He's not going to be part of the Flash movie. And I'm not, the guy's career isn't exactly hurting. He's doing things right now as we speak. But it would just be disheartening to me to see these people get away with what they got away with.
Yeah.
That is always the issue. It's that now it's been brought to light. You see it and it's there, and you still choose to turn a blind eye to it instead of doing something about it.
Yeah. It really sucks to hear that, because, that's the point where you have to, really just kind of separate, like the company that, makes things that you love from, people that are just acting like complete and utter monsters, when it comes to, their thoughts and their feelings on, on people of color or whatever it is. I mean, it just sucks. It really sucks. And like you said, Sith, you said this many times, they're making many, many mistakes, and it's not even just with, it's not even with, just their social issues and their social mores that obviously don't exist and whatnot. Like, just with their narrative.
Yeah.
They're making a huge mistake.
Yeah, they're trying to make something happen, but I don't think they quite know what they want. I think they have an idea in their head, but the thing is, you can't make something good happen if you have a bunch of bad people around you. karma doesn't work like that. You're not going to have good things fall into your lap if all you're spewing out is negativity and bad things and hurting people. That's not how it goes.
I'm just really hoping that the you know, I mean, this is going to sound really silly, but honestly, I think this dude, you know, I was even saying it, you know, like before, you know, Joe Biden even ran for president. I was saying, like, if The Rock had ran for president, he'd probably win. Because he's that kind of guy, you know, that like people just love, you know, for his respect and his honor and just the way he treats people and his charity and all of that. But, you know, I just hope that myth is true. And, you know, with him, you know, being a huge part of DC and, you know, a huge component for Warner, you know, with Black Adam.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, from what people are saying, supposedly he's really vying for the Snyderverse to continue. I mean, that's the story. And they're saying that if that is true, then, you know, if there is somebody that has enough clout to be able to pull that off, it may be Dwayne Johnson.
It would be him. Oh yeah. It would definitely be him.
You know, so we'll have to see. I'm just I don't know. I mean, really, there's nothing really else to say except for, you know, I think you guys are on the same sideline as me. I stand by Ray Fisher. I hope he gets what he wants, whatever that may be. Absolutely. And if it's closure, then, you know, I hope it's cathartic and that he can move on with his career. Yeah. He's a stellar actor. He's stellar.
Yeah. Oh. So John Cena has been doing a lot of his interviews in his Peacemaker costume, and it is definitely James Gunn approved. So he was interviewing Shaq. He was on the Late Night Show.
Excuse me, James Gunn approved, but not wanted. Like, it's not for any kind of marketing. It's not for the studio. It's just he's just doing it.
It's just John Cena. He's just this wonderful, happy man, and I just love seeing him be himself. Like. It's so great.
But they are filming a Peacemaker prequel series for HBO, so I'm wondering if the reason why he's doing these interviews is because he's so busy filming that he doesn't really want to change, so he's like,
Yeah, he's like, I already have it on.
I think it has to do a bit with, you know, just maybe filming a dash of lunacy, you know, like, little sprinkle of just, you know, like John Cena being himself. And I just adore every single time that I look on some late show, John Cena's in that Peacemaker outfit.
I love it.
But I love, you know, when we'd mentioned this before about other characterizations and stuff, but you know, I love when somebody takes their role and just embraces it and adores it and just, you know, and you could tell that he really loves this, you know, this role, and he loves, you know, like being part of this, you know, this universe, and doesn't take it for granted, obviously. I wouldn't be surprised if he sleeps in that damn thing. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, he doesn't take it off the shower. Sleeps in it. Everything.
Lives in it. Peacemaker is now John Cena.
Yeah, Peacemaker is now John Cena. So what's next on Top Jedi?
So one of the last things that we have is Those Who Wish Me Dead, which is a new Angelina Jolie flick that's going to be coming out. It is very action-packed from what I saw from the trailer already. Yeah, I know. She's major girl crush for me. We've got a lot of big names in here too. John Bernthal, Nicholas Hoult, even Tyler Perry is in it. So John Bernthal, I'm most excited about him. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I think the one thing I'm obviously excited about is that, you know, Angelina is returning to the action thriller.
Yes.
You know, I know she did the sequel to Maleficent and stuff, but honestly, she hasn't been doing a lot. And, you know, from, you know, if you follow her, you know, of course, you know, she did have, you know, her own personal, you know, mastectomy, and, you know, was ill for quite a bit. And, you know, like, you know, so it's great to see her, you know, back in some sort of form to be able to do something of this caliber, because, you know, it involves fire. You know, she plays a jumper in the movie, which is, you know, like somebody that, you know, actually, like, you know, gets, you know, drop down into, you know, into like really, you know, traumatic, you know, situations involving fire and stuff. So yeah, this is awesome, man. You know, Taylor Sheridan is a great writer, a great director. He did a really awesome movie that I love called Wind River. He wrote stuff like Sicario. So, I mean, I know this isn't like, superhero fare or any of that stuff, but like it's going to be
Angelina Jolie.
entertaining.
It is very action packed.
Yeah, it's going to be super entertaining. Usually we talk about superheroes, we talk about giant monsters, but we're actually going to flip the script a little bit and talk about something that we've never really talked about on the show, which is my absolute favorite show of all time, The Walking Dead. I have been a loyal follower of the show for over 10 years. When I first started out in this industry, actually, the first people that I ever talked to was actually Walking Dead people. That was the first interviews that I ever did. That's how I, garnered my friendship with, Michael Rooker. I was friends with Michael for years, until his career kind of blew up and he, kind of disappeared, in the ether, which I'm totally fine with. I'm excited for him and his career and him being part of Suicide Squad. I'm always rooting for my man, even though we don't get to talk anymore. But, Walking Dead is a huge part of my life. I was a huge fan of the comic. I used to go to the brick and mortar and get every single issue, when it came out. So I've just, been on board with Walking Dead from the jump. Problem is, some people that have even followed the show for quite some time have, kind of jumped ship, and they, felt like, there wasn't really anything of value left to the show, and it was just like completely silly and utterly stupid and blah, 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 blah. So, I'm going to say this as somebody who followed every single episode from this point that we're at now, which is the last season, which is actually going to premiere on August 22nd, which will be 22 episodes. So don't cry for, the end of Walking Dead if you're a fan, guys. We're going to get it for like 2 years or something like that, but it's great to see that even after all of, the missteps, all of the plot holes and, character development issues and stuff like that. And there absolutely are. When you're playing a long game story like that, you have to expect some sort of, there's going to be some pratfalls at some point. You're going to fall on your face, when it comes to story or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And here we are over 10 years, into this thing. And they actually, due to the pandemic, they actually created these 6 offshoot episodes for season 10. And that's kind of what it was. It was these self-contained emotional stories because they weren't allowed to film with a bunch of people together. So they actually got the characters and they made these small stories, for,
genius.
Certain characters like Gabriel and, this and that. And the finale was going to be Here's Negan, which is actually, it was a graphic novel that came out. It does exist. The narrative's quite a bit different, when it comes to this actual story in the comic, but it does, tell the story of Negan and, his wife Lucille and not being faithful and, how how Lucille the Bat came to be and all that stuff. It's all in this comic. But, it's so cool to see this story come into play because, according to interviews, that I just saw recently with, Jeffrey Dean and his amazing wife, Hillary Burton, who should be doing so much more in this industry. They were both saying that, Jeffrey Dean Morgan was vying to work with his wife for years. And because of the pandemic, they were finally like, you know what, that's not only just a great idea, but you guys are husband and wife, so we don't have to worry about you being separated from each other, you know what I mean, when it comes to the pandemic. So this works perfectly. And, because of these ideas that came into play, finally, we get, if I'm going to be honest with you, and I don't know, because you haven't followed every single episode, you kind of fell off or didn't, quite get to where we are now. This is absolutely one of the greatest Walking Dead episodes of all time. It's so beautifully perfect in every single way, I think. And, really, without really saying too much, says everything about the origins of this character and why they are who they are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's not a lot of exposition. There's, you know what I mean? Everything just kind of, everything is kind of threaded within this, within the story. The leather jacket, where that comes into play. The bat, where that comes into play. Yeah. Here's Negan is what we're going to be talking about this week. So I asked you guys to watch it because I said to you, you know, do you know who Jeffrey Dean Morgan is? Do you know who Negan is? Did you know he killed Glenn? Do you know Maggie might be pissed off at him? And he had a bat
Nice.
in a leather jacket?
Might.
That's all you need to know. That's it. So you guys took that journey, and I'm thankful that you guys wanted to talk about this particular episode because I think everybody should be talking about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sith, what did you think of Here's Negan?
Yeah, let's start with me. So I was a fan of The Walking Dead in the very beginning when it first started. I have a hard time binging really long season shows. So I was one of those people that fell off at a certain point and was unenthused with a lot of stuff. But just seeing this episode and coming back in at the tail end of things, there's obviously a lot of stuff that I missed. Just the characters and the way they set it up, it drew me back in. And now I immediately want to go and rewatch everything that I've missed.
Yeah.
So it immediately sparked that feeling in me again. And it did, they did, like you said, it was very simple. There wasn't a whole lot. There wasn't a whole lot of zombies. There wasn't a whole lot of like plot things going on. It was very simplistic. And that was exactly what it needed to be.
Mm-hmm. Diana, what was your thoughts on Here's Negan?
Well, you guys pretty much hit the nail on the head. I've been a fan of The Walking Dead since it first came out. I actually met Norman Reedus right before Walking Dead was released. So my dad was actually the one that got me into horror as a little kid. So every Sunday, that was kind of me and my dad's routine. We'd watch Walking Dead, and then of course life happens, and then you get distracted. So me and my dad kind of fell off of that wagon. But like what Sith was saying, after watching this episode, I definitely want to go back and rewatch everything and see what I missed with Negan's character development and how he's affected everybody else's life and what's going on with Maggie.
Yeah, Maggie's mad.
Yes.
She is not happy about him still existing.
Yeah, I definitely don't blame her for that.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah, you know, I took it on a more personal level. Honestly, I mean, I've never not been public with the way I was as an individual, and being unfaithful at certain points in my life, being a piece of shit, really, and that's pretty much what Negan was at a certain given point, and just like any other human being, like you're supposed to, face some sort of evolution, see a change in yourself, so even somebody as, the thing is, sometimes you relate to certain villains, where somebody would see them as just being absolutely awful.
Yeah.
I think the saying is that, like the thing that makes a good villain is that the villain doesn't necessarily know that they are a villain.
Yeah.
So everything that Negan thought he was doing was actually the right thing. That's why he called his group the Saviors. He felt they were saving people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that also kind of comes to play in the story for, Here's Negan, that he is a savior. He does save people. And of course that, becomes a larger idea, becomes sanctuary and becomes, this thing where you can actually, be a true leader. You know what I mean? But I always felt connected to that character, not only because, I just have a love affair with villains, but also he's just so nuanced. There is goodness inside of him. There is, compassion. There is, these certain things. He's not a complete and utter monster, across the board. And honestly, if you go back and you look at that episode where he, did what he did to Negan or to Glenn and Abraham, I mean, honestly, like if you looked at it from a different lens, which is where we finally got to see with this particular character of where he was, who he came from, and all that stuff. If we were to follow him, we may have seen him in a different light.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Rick and his crew killed a lot of his people.
Yeah.
A lot of his people.
A lot.
With no remorse and no care or whatever, but they were the ones that we were following the entire time. They were the ones we were taking the journey with. So of course they turn out to be the good guys. You know what I mean?
Emotionally invested. Yeah.
But everything they did was lascivious and awful. They they didn't try to have a conversation with these people. They didn't try to, they were just like, we're just going to go in there, and when they're asleep, we're going to stab them in the head. That's what they did.
That was the plan.
That was the plan. And, Negan was just a character that, was taking that one step that Rick would never take. And, listen, you killed my people, and I'm going to have to take out, some of yours. That's the rules.
Yeah, the eye for an eye.
And I'm taking half your shit. Yeah. Your shit belongs to me now. This is my shit. This is your penance for doing what you did. Yeah. So, it wasn't it never necessarily felt like he was just like this awful villain. You know what I mean? Like he,
exactly.
Of course he had a harem. You know what I mean? He absolutely did. Of wives, and he had his fun and all that other stuff. But the one other thing that's interesting about Negan, I think they actually played into it in the series, was that he was totally against rape, man. Like, do you rape somebody in Sanctuary, you are dead.
Gone. Yeah.
So there was all these different cockeyed rules and laws and stuff, but we really got to see this guy in a different light, and we got to see him absolutely fall on his face and fail when it comes to this woman who so graciously gave him a second chance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when she absolutely didn't have to. And the thing is, we didn't see too much of like their life beforehand. There was like little clips here and there, but it was like you could see the frustration of she was just trying to do her best for him and be there for him and be understanding. And you could tell when she was on the throne with her best friend, it was like, this is like the 50th time we've been through this. I just want him to get his shit together so that we can have our life together. And they never got to that point.
Yeah, he was just not a good dude. He was every typical alpha male, sitting there playing video games, talking trash to kids,
15-year-olds online, yeah.
Buying leather jackets because he's got a lead on a new job, a $600 jacket, mind you, that she probably paid for, and he goes, "I threw away the receipt," and she goes, "Ah."
Yeah, that scream from the other room, I felt that in my bones. Like, what do you mean you threw the receipt away? No, you didn't.
But is there anything in this show, in this episode in particular, that caught you the most? And aside from the birth of this character, which we absolutely see at the end of this episode, was when he busts down that door, and you're like, oh, that's Negan, man. That's
there
him.
He is.
Like, that's totally him.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, obviously, the relationship between them was, I think, the most unique and wonderful thing about what we saw from all this. Would you agree with that?
A couple parts of the episode where I cried a little bit when Negan was singing the "You're So Beautiful" to his wife. That definitely brought me a little misty there.
I'll never hear Joe Cocker the same way ever again.
Yeah.
That song belongs to that episode now.
Yeah, but it's just amazing to see how Negan can go from acting like an immature, like overgrown teenager to being such a caring, loving husband that will do anything for his wife until the end.
Yeah.
It's just, I didn't expect to see that much emotional depth. And I think that Jeffrey did amazing in this episode.
Absolutely. Obviously, because they're married and they're absolutely, smitten by each other, that dynamic works so well. And, there was nothing fake about that chemistry.
Mm-mm.
And you never see anything like that. It felt like a real relationship. You know what I mean? It's usually like two actors that are playing a relationship, but you're not really ever seeing like a real one. And it just felt very real.
It's because they were real. That was really his wife. So, those feelings were real. Those emotions were real. I can't even imagine like him seeing her, you get into that zone when you're acting, seeing her there on the bed.
He said that was the worst. That was the worst thing out of the whole thing.
I can't even imagine like just seeing your partner like that, just acting that out and just having to put yourself through the paces of that when it's not actually happening, but it's technically happening.
Yeah.
Traumatizing.
Well, not only that, but just the fact that I mean, when he walks to the door and you know, he sees right away that she wrote, "Please don't leave me like this," and you're like,
I knew.
oh,
I
man.
knew.
And you know, like the fact that she, you know, like obviously, you know, committed suicide, you know, and you know, put a bag over her head, you know, before, you know, like after taking a bunch of pills, and you know, because she didn't have that bullet anymore, because she was going to save her man, and that's what she used that bullet for. I think initially the bullet might have been for him, and then she just decided, you know what,
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell him I have cancer, and that's going to sting. That's going to sting enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't have to kill this guy. You know, like
I hate to say it, but that's a big karma hit with that.
Yeah.
Like the love of your life most likely dying from
Yeah.
cancer. You can't get any more karmic than that.
But even in his white knightdom, you know, like even that was a fail. And that's what's so I think that's what's so heartbreaking about the story, is that this guy was really trying to be different, and he, you know, and all he wanted was to find the things that she required to be able to go on. And you know, even in that, you know, like he was gone for 6 weeks, and of course, you know, she probably thought that, you know, he ended up like, you know, ditching her, and was completely heartbroken. Scary is not the word that I would use particularly, but you know, I mean, a lot of people would be scared of somebody like this, that, you know, once you get to the point where there are no laws, nobody's coming after you, there are no lawyers.
Yeah. Who's gonna stop you?
Who's gonna stop you? Who's gonna stop you? Nobody. And I think, you know, maybe myself included, maybe 5-10 steps from Negan. Who knows? I don't know. I really don't know.
We'll need a zombie apocalypse to find out.
Well, we'll just have to find out.
You're ready.
Got it on hand.
But yeah, it was just, you know, honestly, like, I mean, do you guys agree with me? I mean, I just think that episode was an absolute work of art, and just so well done. And, you know, just like somebody like, you know, like something like Godzilla versus Kong saving the box office, this episode saved The Walking Dead.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Like I said, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna watch everything that I missed now, just because I want more.
So that is our episode, guys. If you guys haven't seen the episode, here's Negan. You don't really need a lot of plot follow up to understand exactly what's going on. I think you'll be able to get into it pretty easily, and it definitely is something to watch. It's like I said, it's just one of the greatest Walking Dead episodes there's been in years. From the Jedi Order, we wish you a good night. We'll see you next week. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.